22-year-old Norman Christopher Collier IV sought to avenge the death of his brother, but in doing so murdered an innocent man on April the 25th of 2021. At around 5 p.m. on April the 22nd, Norman's brother, 19-year-old Cameron Collier, was shot to death in the driver's seat of his 2013 Honda Accord. The police indicated that the motive for the killing, which unfolded on Westlake Drive in DeSoto, Texas, was robbery. Rumors began to bubble up on social media, mistakenly pinpointing Lancaster resident Colby Graham as the killer. 3 days later, during a balloon release ceremony in Giga Park in Cameron's honor, Norman shot 20-year-old Graham in the head in retaliation for his brother's death. He was subsequently arrested and held on a $1 million bond. Several days later, Graham ended up succumbing to his gunshot wound. Law enforcement were 100% positive that Graham wasn't responsible for the Collier's loss. The spokesman for the local police department said that it was the first time in his career that rumors on social media caused the death of an innocent person. On May the 12th, authorities in Pleasant Grove apprehended Cameron's actual killer, a teenager with an extensive criminal record. The suspect was consequently charged with capital murder. According to court records, Norman was indicted by a grand jury on the same charge the following month. Number 6. Raul Alexander Cuevas. On March the 29th of 2023, 31-year-old Idaho man Raul Alexander Cuevas murdered an individual in Nampa who was the prime suspect in an ongoing homicide investigation. A day prior, at around 8:45 p.m., a 52-year-old woman by the name of Michelle E. Luna had reportedly passed away after being stabbed multiple times at her West Grouse Street residence. 39-year-old Jesus R. Urrutia was immediately identified as the suspect and charged with first-degree murder. Shortly after 7 o'clock the following morning, law enforcement responded to a call about a man who'd been stabbed at a gas station. The victim was found slumped inside a vehicle while the engine was still running. He suffered a sharp force injury to the chest and was later identified as Urrutia. The latter was transported to a hospital by EMTs but was pronounced dead within the hour. Subsequently, 20 miles away from the station, Cuevas was arrested by Ada County Sheriff's deputies in connection with the suspected killer's death. He went on to reveal that Luna was his mother, and he thus targeted her killer in retaliation. The coroner's office officially ruled Urrutia's death a homicide. The suspect was taken into police custody on a charge of first-degree murder. At the time, authorities hadn't officially determined the motive behind the attack at the gas station, as the county sheriff's office said they were pursuing different leads. However, following Cuevas' apprehension, his unfortunate ties to Urrutia eventually came to light. Number 5. Terence Cole Jr. On November the 6th of 2019, the charred remains of 28-year-old Terence Cole Jr. was found inside an abandoned car in Alcorn, Mississippi. Subsequent reports identified the man as a victim of a revenge killing for the death of 26-year-old Corinth man Jeffrey Moore. Authorities suspected Cole as the individual responsible for the disappearance and presumed murder of Moore, who was last seen by his family on October the 28th of 2019. Investigators revealed that 39-year-old David Rhodes, along with 2 accomplices, tracked Cole down, shot him, drove 6 miles away to Main Street and Buchanan in Corinth, and burned his body inside the vehicle. Days later, Rhodes was arrested and charged with murder, arson, tampering with evidence, and possession of a firearm by a felon. His partners in crime, 26-year-old Christina Gurley and Elisa Wilburn, aged 18, were arrested on November the 14th and charged with accessory after the fact and tampering with evidence. Moore's body was never found. Number 4. Charlotte Lissaris. Florida woman Charlotte Lissaris from Altoona sent indecent photos of herself to her ex's son on the afternoon of June the 6th of 2016. The incident occurred in the aftermath of the couple's contentious split, which was allegedly followed by repeated harassment of each other. 46-year-old Lissaris told the police she'd used Facebook to send 2 graphic pictures to the teenager. One of the explicit images reportedly included the teen's father as well. The woman claimed to have sent the photographs after her ex had threatened to leak a private video of her to her family. On September the 27th, Lissaris was arrested and booked at the Polk County Jail. Her attorney, Carmen Anderson, released a statement detailing how she'd been the victim of domestic abuse during her relationship with the ex in question Anderson also posted an audio clip of Lissaris being threatened by the former flame, who vowed to get even after she'd called the cops on him. The woman was charged with dissemination and exhibition of obscene material to minors. She was released on a $1,000 bond. The county attorney's office ultimately declined to prosecute because there was a need for further investigation. Number 3. Travion Banks. On September the 14th of 2020, Shelvick Henry was shot in the back 3 times in Vero Beach, Florida, in retaliation for the 2018 murders of Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams. Thomas and Williams, who went by the rap names YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser, respectively, had allegedly been murdered by 2 members of their own hip-hop collective, Cortland YNW Portland Henry and Jamel YNW Melly Demons. The victim in the 2020 shooting, 43-year-old Shelvick Henry, was Cortland's father. He was shot at the Victory Park apartment on Lincoln Drive in Gifford and then transported to the Regional Medical Center in Fort Pierce. On September the 21st of 2020, a week after he had been shot, Shelvick was taken off a ventilator and told detectives that he had been shot by 2 black males. When officers showed him a photo lineup, he identified 18-year-old Travion Banks and Shaquem Parker. His statement matched several anonymous tips channeled through law enforcement. Banks and Parker were suspected to have targeted Shelvick Henry as retaliation for his son's involvement in the 2018 murders of the 2 rappers. 2 days after the identification, Banks was arrested by Indian River County deputies in the 1800 block of Old Dixie Highway and charged with first-degree attempted murder with a firearm. He was held at the county jail on a $250,000 bond. It is unclear what happened to the second suspect in the case, Shaquem Parker. Number 2. Jacqueline Here and Jesse Klee. In July of 2022, 26-year-old Jacqueline Here almost died after she ingested what she believes to have been bad drugs she'd purchased from a dealer. Several weeks later, her boyfriend, 30-year-old Jesse Klee, purchased a 9mm handgun and conspired with Here to jump the dealer in question. She called the latter on July the 25th and requested that they meet again. At around midnight, the couple, together with 2 other unidentified individuals, hopped in a blue Ford Crown Victoria and went to the agreed-upon rendezvous point at Lake Worth Beach. In a residential neighborhood west of Federal Highway, Klee leaned over from the passenger seat and shot the drug dealer 4 times in the chest with the handgun. They then fled north near Interstate 95. To hide out from law enforcement, the group checked in at a Holiday Inn Express. The next day, Here was arrested by deputies from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for possession of fentanyl and drug paraphernalia. After she was released on bond in connection with the drug charges, Here was then arrested again on July the 28th of 2022. She was charged as a principal to the dealer's murder for helping Klee, who was also arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The circuit court judge ordered that the couple be held in custody without bail. Before we move on to the final listing, know that we have our previous video lined up about when rage goes wrong, with many more interesting cases. Stay tuned if you'd like. Number 1. Brian Bush. Southwest Houston man Brian Bush was arrested and charged with murder after he fatally shot his girlfriend's alleged killer on February the 28th of 2023. The man Bush targeted, identified as Earl Marcel Green, had reportedly been the woman's childhood friend. As stated in court records, 38-year-old Bush and his girlfriend, 45-year-old Clothea Garrett, ran into Green as they pulled up to a Sonic drive-thru on South Post Oak Road on February the 26th. The 3 engaged in what was described as a friendly conversation. However, when Bush left the vehicle to order food, Green abruptly opened fire on Garrett. As reported by ABC 13, an eyewitness said it was bad at the scene, where the woman was fatally shot at least 7 times. The following day, Green was charged with her murder. Around midday on February the 28th, the suspect was gunned down at the intersection of Rockergate Drive and Blue Ridge Road in southwest Houston. Bush was arrested for the revenge killing and held at the Harris County Jail, although he was reportedly charged in Fort Bend County, where the incident had actually taken place. Number 9. Scott Madison. A road rage argument that occurred in the Chicago suburb of Streamwood in late February of 2022 ended in the death of 46-year-old Glendale Heights man Scott Madison. Cook County court documents revealed that the altercation had commenced when Madison was backing his pickup truck into his driveway. Rather than allow him to finish the maneuver, 18-year-old Jonathan Mayer went around Madison in a white Ford sedan. Enraged, the latter pulled up in front of the teenager's vehicle on Bartlett Road. Dashcam footage captured the moment that Madison then got out and approached Mayer on the driver's side. Words were exchanged, and as tensions escalated, the older man reached inside the vehicle and struck the teenager in the face. Mayer retaliated by shooting Madison several times with a 9mm pistol and inflicting gunshot injuries to his liver, spleen, and chest. The footage would show Madison taking a few steps back before collapsing on the ground. He was pronounced dead in a local hospital shortly thereafter. A witness who was walking his dogs nearby also recorded part of the incident on his cell phone and later uploaded the clip to Snapchat. The bystander would tell the authorities that Madison was unarmed when Mayer opened fire on him. The teenager, previously known as a juvenile delinquent for an offense of discharging a firearm, then drove to the Streamwood Police Department to give his account of the incident. He was charged with first-degree murder and aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. Number 8. Abigail White. On March the 25th of 2022 in the English town of Kingswood, South Gloucestershire, an OnlyFans model killed her boyfriend, who was also reported as the doting father of her children. At around 8:20 p.m., paramedics were called to the semi-detached property shared by 23-year-old Abigail White and Bradley Lewis, aged 22. The latter was rushed to the hospital for urgent treatment after it was revealed that he'd been stabbed. In the early stages of the ensuing investigation, the authorities speculated that following a rage-fueled argument, mother of four White had plunged a blade through her boyfriend's chest. Lewis passed away roughly 6 hours later, and a post-mortem examination confirmed it had been due to a single knife wound. White, who dubbed herself Fake Barbie on social media, would often post semi-nude pictures inviting users to subscribe to her OnlyFans, which charged $5 a month. It's unclear if the row had had anything to do with her online modeling. She was charged with murder and held in custody until her court date scheduled for April the 28th. In the meantime, many expressed their regrets towards Lewis's passing, including the Hanham Athletic Football Club, where he played as a reserve. Number 7. Mr. Lee. In August of 2010, harrowing footage from a shopping mall in Daejeon, South Korea showed a man falling to his death following an outburst born out of frustration with a lift. The wheelchair-bound man, only identified as Mr. Lee, arrived in front of the lift only moments after the doors had closed. According to local authorities, 40-year-old Lee was enraged because a woman inside the lift hadn't held it open for him. He rammed his wheelchair into the closed doors twice and made a dent in them. Lee then reversed his wheelchair for a third attempt, but upon impact, the doors gave away. Lee was subsequently reported to have plunged 19 feet to his death. In the incident's aftermath, officials from the shopping center stated an intention of reinforcing lift doors to ensure that similar accidents wouldn't happen in the future. Number 6. Chad Reed. A furious row over child custody resulted in the fatal shooting of a man in Lubbock, Texas, on November the 5th of 2021. 4 people were involved to varying degrees in the argument, and the entire incident was captured on cell phone footage. 54-year-old Chad Reed and his wife, Jennifer, had gone to the home of Kyle Carruth. The latter was at the residence with Reed's ex-wife, Christina, with whom he was involved in a relationship. On the house's porch, a verbal fight ensued between Reed and Christina regarding their son, whom the former was reportedly meant to have custody of at 3:15 p.m. Carruth became involved in the argument and at one point emerged from his home armed with a rifle and told the other man to get off his property. Reed squared up to Carruth, daring him to shoot. The armed man fired a shot into the ground, but it didn't deter Reed, who continued to push against him before moving to grab the weapon. Carruth then abruptly jumped back, aimed his rifle at Reed and fired 2 shots that connected, causing him to slump over. Jennifer Reed, who'd initially failed to realize the severity of her husband's condition, was heard in the audio telling the other man, "I have it on video, Kyle." Reed ultimately succumbed to his gunshot wounds. In late March of 2022, a grand jury convened by the Attorney General's office decided that no charges were to be filed against Carruth. His defense had successfully argued that the death of Reed had been a justifiable homicide under the Castle Doctrine according to which Carruth had had the right to defend himself, others, or his property. Number 5. Stepan Dolgiga. 36-year-old Russian woman Oksana Puladentseva had met Stepan Dolgiga, aged 33, while he was in prison, and after his release the couple made plans to get married. Dolgiga had previous convictions for murder and robbery, but according to local authorities, Puladentseva felt that she would be a positive and reforming influence in his life. In the fall of 2020, their wedding took place in the Siberian village of Prokutskoy, during the party where significant amounts of alcohol had reportedly been consumed. An inebriated Dolgiga accused his bride of behaving inappropriately with another guest. In a fit of jealous rage, Dolgiga viciously attacked his bride. Others who were present at the scene called the police but were allegedly too afraid of the man to intervene. Dolgiga started beating Puladentseva outside the house and resumed the savage assault inside. He punched and kicked the woman repeatedly before pushing her in the street, where he continued to strike her in the head and torso. When Puladentseva went limp, Dolgiga threw her body in a nearby ravine. The woman ultimately succumbed to the devastating injuries she'd sustained in a prolonged attack. The Russian National Guard detained Dolgiga at the scene, and he confessed to the killing following his arrest. Number 4. Danny Kelly. In 2021, while driving to a Christmas Eve dinner with his girlfriend and his 3 young children, a former professional boxer was gunned down in Temple Hills, Maryland. The incident was reported as a road rage incident, but the authorities didn't elaborate on the nature of the dispute. Former heavyweight pugilist Danny "Smooth" Kelly and his family were heading northbound on St. Barnabas Road. In retaliation for a previous traffic dispute, someone pulled up in an SUV and opened fire on 30-year-old Kelly. No one else in the car was hurt, but the former boxer was found by paramedics unresponsive in the driver's seat and pronounced dead a short time later. The car from which the gunfire had originated was identified as a dark blue GMC Envoy and eventually traced to 25-year-old Clinton man Markel Lewis. He'd actually been arrested on St. Barnabas Road a few days after the killing for felon in possession of a gun. The weapon was subsequently linked to Kelly's murder, to which Lewis confessed and confirmed road rage to have been the reason. Number 3. Sol Perez. On November the 26th of 2021, Guiying Ma was sweeping the sidewalk outside her home in the North Corona neighborhood of Queens, New York City. As per court records, Ma then got into a dispute, the nature of which remained unclear, with 33-year-old Sol Perez. In a moment of rage, the man grabbed a large rock off the ground and struck 61-year-old Ma in the back of the head. The attack was caught on surveillance footage, and it showed the latter being knocked to the ground and Perez then throwing the rock at her as she lay unconscious. Ma was taken to a hospital and treated for a right skull fracture, facial fractures, and internal bleeding on her brain. The rock was recovered by local authorities, and it reportedly still had blood on it. Perez, who reportedly slept in the streets close to where the attack had occurred, was arrested and confessed to striking the woman. It would later be revealed that Ma had suffered permanent damage to the right side of her brain. She remained in a coma until early February of 2022, but in spite of showing slight signs of improvement, passed away later in the month. Her death was ruled a homicide, which potentially meant more severe charges for Perez. In the bludgeoning's immediate aftermath, he'd been charged with assault with intent to disfigure and dismember, assault with intent to seriously injure with a weapon, and criminal possession of a weapon. Today's topic was requested by G-Star. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Tatiana O. A Russian woman fatally choked her husband to death with her backside following a dispute at their home in Novokuznetsk in May of 2021. Only identified as Tatiana O, the woman and her spouse, named as Adair, were involved in a heated argument after they'd both had copious amounts of alcohol. Enraged, 45-year-old Tatiana decided to sit on her husband's head until he begged her for forgiveness. She did so, burying his face in the mattress and using her legs to prevent him from lifting his neck. The woman, whom the investigative committee reported weighed close to 230 pounds, got off Adair when she realized he'd passed out. She was frightened and reportedly shouted at him to wake up. Adair was later pronounced dead, and a post-mortem examination ruled that his death had been due to asphyxia from blocking the respiratory system. Tatiana maintained that she'd never meant to kill her husband, but merely calm him down during the row. A murder charge against her was eventually dropped, and she was convicted of causing death by negligence. Number 1. Nashan Walsh. In March of 2022, Bajana James was found unresponsive by her brother inside her unlocked East 147th Street apartment in the Bronx borough of New York City. 37-year-old James had suffered a critical knife wound to her throat and was pronounced dead at the scene. In the days leading up to her slaying, the mother of two had texted a family member to say that she was afraid of her boyfriend, describing the situation as him bugging out. James had also written, "I'm scared he's going to kill me." She then stopped replying to texts, prompting her brother to check on her, whereupon he discovered the grisly crime scene. The NYPD subsequently arrested 35-year-old Nashan Walsh. The man believed to have been the focus of James's worrisome texts and the reason why she feared for her life. Walsh was charged with murder, manslaughter, and criminal possession of a weapon. According to a criminal complaint, Walsh said he lived with his girlfriend at the address where James's body had been found and also told investigators, "I stabbed her a couple of times in a rage." Thanks for watching. If someone who pickpockets your wallet was caught by the police and the only two choices would be for them to be released free of charge or to serve 20 years depending on your verdict, which one would you choose? Let us know in the comments section below.